Hello, and welcome to Fat Black Woman. I'm Deanna Williams. Today I'm going to talk about toxic workplaces and specifically my experience in a toxic workplace that I was working in for about 3 years or so. Um, my career, my chosen profession is communications, public relations, strategic marketing, communications, whatever the nomenclature is today. Um, that's what I did. I've done it for about 25 years or so. And for the most part, I've had a great time doing it. I love it. It is basically what I've been made to do. As you may have been able to notice, I have the gift of the gab. I love talking to people. I love connecting with people. I love being creative and strategic all at the same time. I like solving puzzles. And all of that falls under the umbrella of communications or public relations. I started my career um, at agencies, working in New York City at 3 agencies, Reuter Finn, where I started working on in retail for Heckender stores. They're long gone. I then went to Edelman, where I was working specifically on Hasbro toys. So that was kind of like a childhood dream come true to work with the Hasbro toys. And then I finished my agency tenure, if you will, at Marina Mar, where I cut my teeth in beauty with Procter& Gamble products, including Secret, antiperspirant, and um, Head and Shoulders and Johnson & Johnson products, and had the best time. That was the first time that I was able to really work with celebrities and launch products and get to sample products before they hit the shelves. And I like to think of Marina Mar as my finishing school because Marina was very much a part of um, the day-to-day activities that went on the within the agency. She wasn't just a figurehead. Her name was on the building. She was very much involved with what was going on, and I appreciated that and learned a lot from that. And that was probably the least toxic work environment that I had ever experienced. From there, I went in-house, and probably the most fun I had was working at Macy's because, I often say I wear many hats. Well, at Macy's, you have no other choice. You wear many hats, many shoes, many, whatever it is, because, no day is the same. I got to work on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, the Macy's fireworks, the flower show, not to mention all of the in-store events, with everyone from Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Hanson, if you remember them, um, in addition to dealing with the holidays and overnight shoots with movies and crisis communications with racial profiling. I mean, it just spanned the gamut as it relates to communications, and even working with city officials and state officials. I really cut my teeth across the board and found a love for crisis communications. From there, I worked with Swatch Group on Swatch watches. I worked at Simmons Jewelry, so I got to work with Russell Simmons and Kamora Lee Simmons on their respective jewelry brands, and went back to Macy's. So fun times. Where that changed is in 2015. I left Macy's to work at an organization. I will not say the name. An organization in the DC metro area. And I did that because I was moving to DC to be with my now husband. And this was a great opportunity. Although I was coming in, it was a little junior for me, but given what the organization was and their standing, and, my hope that I could definitely use this opportunity to springboard into other things, because I could see what the opportunities were, the potential was. I was like, okay, this is fine. And the money was good. So, okay, this is fine. My direct supervisor was someone who had less experience than me, but she was still competent and had the experience that I could pull from her, especially because she had been at that organization for years. So we made a good team. And we did make a good team. We complemented each other very well, and we worked together very well. Now, above us was a new vice president who had come in from an agency. She was a vice president at an agency. Now, the difference between a vice president at an agency and a vice president at in-house is experience. You can be 26 years old at an agency and be a senior vice president. In-house, if you are a senior vice president, you are more like 46. And it's not to bring in age, but it's the level of experience, the depth of experience that you do have. And this vice president did not have the experience. I'm going to just call her Dumb Bunny. I'm not going to say her name. But Dumb Bunny was just that. She was blonde haired, blue eyed, fresh out of an agency, significantly younger than I was, which meant that she was younger in experience and in qualifications. Um, and she knew that, and I knew that. And upon our very first meeting, I could tell that she was not very comfortable with me. Um, I don't know if she had had many encounters with a confident, competent, self assured black woman, but I don't think she liked what I was projecting in terms of confidence, competence, self assuredness. She didn't really have much conversation for me. She really didn't like being around me. I could sense that. She would always find a way not to sit next to me or not to have too much conversation with me. When she did have conversation with me, it would be kind of backhanded, and it would be about my wardrobe, which I thought was strange. She would always comment. I mean, I went to work dressed for work. You know, I was a firm believer, thanks to Marina Marr, to always be dressed for work as if somebody's going to shove a camera in front of your face because that's the job. So that's how I went to work. She did not. But in any case, I didn't really care. I was there to do my job and do my job well. Apparently, according to my immediate supervisor, I did do my job well. I got a lot of positive feedback from not only my direct supervisor, but the teams and the brands that we worked on. And, so much so that I got a 90-day review that was absolutely glowing. The team loves you. They're this, they're that. I got a raise. I was, just being tapped for, hey, Deanna, you should do this. Deanna, you should do that. I want you to go on the next Aspen cohort. So it was great. That was 90 days. The 6-month review was, again, fabulous. Deanna's bringing new ideas and newness to our brands that we've never seen before. And, she's just been a great asset to the team and so on and so forth. Fabulous. Dumb Bunny, by the way, wasn't all that complimentary to me and wasn't all that inviting. One scenario, and this is important as I talk about a toxic work environment. So one scenario was, it was Wednesday or Thursday, and I'm walking past her office, and she calls me, and she says, Deanna, I just want to ask you, I'm going to have the team over on this Sunday. And you don't have to say yes. You don't have to come. You don't have to come because I realize it's last minute. But, if you want, you can come. Now, what an invitation. I mean, why wouldn't I feel welcome? So I said, of course. My husband and I would love to be there. What time? Give me your information. Blah, blah, blah. So that Sunday rolls around. Neither one of us wants to go. I mean, bland food, whatever. But we went and even brought a very nice bottle of wine and, kikied with the kids. Oh my gosh, they're so sweet, they're so cute, yada, yada, yada. We stayed there for the obligatory 2 hours and then we left. And of course, I wrote a thank you note and sent it in the mail. And when she got it, oh, Deanna, you didn't have to do a thank you note. And I was like, well, yeah, I did because that's how my mother raised me. That's etiquette. You say thank you to your host. I was like, that's what we do. But it was like little things like that. I don't really want you to be around. She would have lunch ordered for the team and would leave me off and would send memos or calendar invites to the team and would leave me off. Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whatever, bunny. So anyway, again, I was doing very well, or so I thought. And there came a time when the company was merging with another company, so there was going to be some restructuring and new jobs or new positions were going to be added to the company. Now, what the company, the organization that I worked for, said, okay, we're going to relax our policies in terms of who can apply for jobs. You no longer have to be at the company for 2 years or in your position for a year, whatever it is. We're going to open up these jobs to everybody. Please apply to however many jobs you want to apply for. So I was like, okay, great. Finally, this gives me an opportunity to be put in a position or apply for a position that better suits me and, that I have control over. So I applied to a series of jobs. As so did so many other people. And I thought, well, based off of my reviews and things that I've said, and of course I had all the emails and everything patting me on the back, and I didn't get called for one interview. And I was like, wow, that's weird. So I was a little taken aback by that, and I kind of inquired. I was like, well, hey, what's going on? So finally, Dumb Bunny calls me in her office and says, yeah, we're not gonna advance you to the interview stage because I just don't feel that you're ready for the next step. It seems to me like you only want to be promoted to be promoted, and I just don't feel that you're ready for the brand. You don't know that much about the brands and so on and so forth. And this was a Friday. I was like, what? What? I was just taken aback. I was like, well, what do you know about me? Because you've not had any conversations with me. What's being said? And, so that was one reason. So I came back to her and I was like, listen, I don't know what's going on, but these are the things that have been said about me, within the groups. These are the things that I've done. These are the results that I've generated, so on and so forth. Well, yeah, but I just don't, I think that there's just areas that you can improve and I said, well, no, I don't know because no one's brought that to my attention until now. Where is it in writing? So we're going back and forth. I had several conversations. I would say about 7 conversations from October until December with her about me and these interviews and these jobs. And of those 7 conversations, the reasons for me not getting an interview changed 15 different times. Shifting. So just remember that. Shifting excuses as to why I would not be interviewed or considered for any of those positions. Nothing in writing, nothing that I was told about in advance. I was told that I wasn't ready to be promoted with no reason other than I brought my computer into meetings, or I didn't participate in meetings. My creativity was judged. Someone had said, there was this idea that was blah, 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 and I was not present for this meeting, presented this idea, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great idea, definitely, we're going to do it. And the person who brought it up said, I would love to take credit for this, but it was actually Deanna's idea. Dumb Bunny says, Deanna who? Really? So clearly I was not thought of as someone that could generate an idea, let alone someone who could lead the charge of any team. I was told I did not embody the brands. I mean, truth be told, those brands that we were talking about, I didn't embody. I was at a much more elevated level, but whatever. But I didn't embody the brands because I didn't look like any of those white people on the brand. I was the only black person, the only person of color on those brands. So yeah, I guess I could see that. I was told I learned secondhand that I had a very elevated opinion of myself. I was told in a meeting one time that I shouldn't show off. There were all of these things that led to my toxic work environment. I was gaslit constantly. But the sad thing is, I was gaslit verbally, but I had everything in writing to back up how you couldn't gaslight me. So I literally was like, wait, what's going on? You people aren't even savvy enough to sabotage me, right? Here it is in writing. But what I didn't realize is that even though I had it in writing and even though I could back my shit up and even though my shit was tight, it didn't matter. It did not matter at all. This went on for months. And I finally reached a point where the disrespect I could take no longer, I could tolerate no longer. I got an attorney and we began proceedings with filing with the EEOC and the Human Rights Commission because I was really being racially discriminated against by this company. And you would think that that would grab the attention of people, say, wait, what's going on? I mean, the way that I outlined it even prior to discussing it or securing an attorney, you would think that they would say, wait, what's happening here? No, they, I guess the initial plan was to just exhaust me until I just quit. But that wasn't happening. So my attorney started the conversation with general counsel and they went back and forth and we filed papers within the Maryland Human Rights Commission and they didn't find anything, which is typical because at that point, the company was in the process of bidding for space in Maryland and Virginia and DC. And of course, Maryland wanted that bid. So, of course, they were going to side with Maryland Human Rights was going to side with that particular company. And then it just kept getting worse. You know, my new boss came in and she basically decided that she was going to use this opportunity to manage me out and do whatever it is that she could. And she had full backing of these people and she tried everything in her power. The gaslighting continued, the attacks on my character, the attacks on my work, the attacks on my personal brand. I mean, I thank God my parents instilled in me a sense of confidence, a sense of entitlement, in terms of what I thought and knew I deserved and who I was, because were it up to them, I would have just been torn to shreds. And that was completely and totally their objective. And had I not had the experiences that I had prior to this organization and not been aware of my lineage, my background, my ancestors, where I come from, I don't know where I would be to this day, but they definitely tried it. They tried it, honey. So, 3 years, this goes on for 3 years, this whole like toxic work environment. And I have to go on with my full armor of God. I mean, there are prayers, there's therapy, there are tears. But when I walked in there every day, I was on point. My shit was tight. And listen, it wasn't all bad. I got to go to Australia. I got to go to Hawaii. You know, I was like, okay, cool, no problem. That's the payoff. Great. But it kind of came to a head when I was put on suspension and without any pay until they decided if they were going to keep me or if they were going to let me go. So as I was put on suspension, that's when my attorneys filed the actual lawsuit against them. And 3 days after the lawsuit was filed and they were served, I was terminated. Talk about retaliation. On the upside, I no longer had to deal with a toxic work environment. So that was a huge relief. On the downside, I'm like, wow, I don't have a job. My insurance, I didn't even realize that my insurance had ended like right then and there. There was no severance. I mean, cut off. Maryland being an at-will state, they don't have to say anything. They're just, yep, you're out of here. I was like, I've got a mortgage. I've got a car payment. I've got a shoe habit, all of that. But I did have my sanity and that sense of relief that I don't have to go in with all that armor. I can drop my armor and be a little bit more vulnerable. And now I am vulnerable because I got to look for a job. And I now have to retain my attorneys using thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and dipping into my 401k. And really saying, do I really want to move forward with this? And the good thing about me is, or the bad thing about me is, I'm extremely stubborn and I will cut off my nose to spite my face. And all I kept hearing in my head was, you must not know about me. You must not know about me. Because I was like, I'll be damned if I am just going to roll over on this. Sometimes, you got to pick your battles, and what are those battles? But this was a fucking war. And I was not about to walk away from this because they had done me wrong. And fuck fairness. I needed to get in there and I needed to fight. And I needed for them to know that you don't just get to do this to me and think that it's all over with. And I needed for this company to know that there are individuals that are going to lead your company astray. Yes, it's just one little me, but you need to keep your eye on who is running your company on your behalf, because they're not doing right. Anyway, I go through the entire rigmarole of discovery and just combing through all of my emails and text messages and therapist notes, and we go through mediation, and I'm warned you don't want to, one of the mediators like, you don't want to do this because they're going to bring out, your mental health issues and so on and so forth. And I was like, I didn't care. They contributed to my mental health issues. I mean, I'm depressed, but I suffer from depression, but really they exacerbated that. And then, depositions and, being deposed by a brilliant black woman, who was their counsel, that was opposing counsel, and just like being scared out of my mind. I don't know what she's going to bring up. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but I didn't want to have to go through that. And then watching their depositions and listening to them lie and not being able to be like, hey, you're lying. But my attorneys were very good in catching them in a lie, so it was fine. And that went on for about 3 years. And then, finally, we settled, and I was very pleased with the settlement. And I was, pleased with the settlement. It was okay. What was even better was learning that Dumb Bunny had been fired. They claimed that they had terminated her position. It was that January of January 2020 that her position had been eliminated. But then April of 2020, they posted her position, just kind of changing an opening for her position, just changing a word or so or two. So I thought that was hilarious because she truly was Dumb Bunny, and I don't even know why they hired her in the first place, but that's neither here nor there. But I say all this to say that any black woman, any black person, but particularly a black woman that's going through this, where you are on a daily basis challenged and undermined and are made to feel diminished and made to feel less than. If you are being discriminated against, you're not alone, and there are things and steps that you can take to fight this, if that is what you want to do. And that doesn't mean that you have to fight it, because it is a fight. It's not fun. And you are extremely vulnerable. It's exhaustive. And I believe that this organization really thought that they were just going to exhaust me financially, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, hell, even physically, because it's a test of endurance, and you definitely need to be self-assured and have a support system. But it is worth it, because we have to stand up for ourselves. Too many times I've seen that nobody was going to stand up for me. Nobody had my back for whatever reason. And in this day and age, as we see black women being targeted, from the 300,000 black women who've just lost their jobs in the span of 9 months, to Trump ranting and raving about fat black women in such a disparaging way or calling them names, talking about low IQs. I mean, we're catching it across the board. When we have an opportunity to fight and stand up for ourselves, we must take it. It looks different for everybody, looks different for every individual. And I can't tell you, what to do or what not to do, but I can tell you that we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to the legacy of the women whose shoulders we stand on to fight and protect ourselves. And we owe it to the daughters, the nieces, who come after us, to support them and to show them that we have to fight for our rights. We have to fight for who we are. Before we landed on these shores, or our ancestors landed on these shores, we were kings and queens and pharaohs and warriors. And we still have that in our blood. And, as far as the toxicity is concerned, it's always going to be there. But what I've learned and where I am, and this could be why I'm doing a podcast rather than working some places, I no longer am going to be uncomfortable for some white person, some white woman, or anybody to be comfortable. I can't do it anymore. I will not forsake my sanity. And I wish I didn't have to go through that. Life would have been so much easier if I could have just gotten that, gotten the interview, gotten the promotion, gone on, gotten the salary, and just la la la, going about my day, and would have been great, fine, and fabulous. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about the process. It's not what you see on television. But I don't regret it. I wish that it hadn't happened. But I just want my experience to be heard, so that if you are experiencing something like this or something close to it, or you can see it coming down the horizon, or if anything that I'm saying is like ringing a bell to you before it gets to the point of a lawsuit, that you can recognize it. And if you have any questions or you want to discuss any of this, then by all means, please do. I would love to share, some insight or anything that I can to help you navigate and make the decision that's best for you in terms of how to proceed. So that's all I have for this episode of Fat Black Woman. I hope it's helpful and insightful. And until next time, I want to offer peace and blessings. Thank you.